Hi, is that Shiri?
Yes, good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fabulous. Are you our wonderful host this morning?
Yeah, it's been good, terrific. Well, one lovely conversation after another. Uh,
Very good.
and are you in the East Coast of the U.S.?
I am. I'm in South Carolina.
Oh, right, right. Wonderful, wonderful, Shiri.
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
I noticed, how do you have my title?
How do I have your title? I've got a whole profile on you. Uh, just a sec.
Are we live yet?
Uh, no, I think we still have a couple of minutes.
Okay, good. Very good.
You spell your name as Sherer.
Shere.
SHE, right, sorry. Okay, right, got it.
No worries.
I got it here. It describes you as an international author, speaker, TV, and radio host, excellence provoker, purpose development coach, ordained minister, businesswoman. The list goes on and on.
The
Yes.
list does go on and on. For the sake of this particular interview, I really want to focus on the business Second Chance CDFI Bank that I
Yeah,
found.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if we could just, I mean, it's a lot of information there. Obviously, I've done a lot, but for the sake of this and the startup funding for women entrepreneurs,
yeah.
I really wanted to make the founder of Second Chance CDFI. So
That's
while
a
we have
good.
a few minutes, if you don't mind, I really appreciate that.
No, no, we'll do that. And what I was just amazed is how you manage your spiritual side and your business side so hugely successfully. And maybe God works through you. So that's the whole idea. Right?
Absolutely. That is it. Thank you so much for recognizing that. That's exactly how I got to where I am today. It's all because of my faith. Absolutely.
And you're just so gratefully paying it all back, helping the
Yeah.
underserved. Yeah. So we'll
Yeah.
do that. We'll do that. Technically, we
Okay.
are on. Usually, there's a host that admits us, but I think we can. We if no one comes to the way, we can get going. I think. I don't know.
Okay.
I've been doing some of these sessions one after another, and
Okay.
so I think we should get going.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
so once again, Shiri Darian, on behalf of Women Economic Forum, it's our absolute pleasure to find your time and attention and to get inspired by your ideas and accomplishments um, at this first ever digital format of the forum. So we're very deeply grateful. Uh, I just want to take a couple of minutes to introduce you. Your biography is there for everyone to see on the platform. But clearly, you are a woman of many an accomplishment. And as my favorite line in your biography is, the list goes on and on. There's just no way to can your accomplishments. But you are really an international author, you're a speaker, TV and radio host, you're an excellence provoker, which is an interesting one. You're a purpose development coach, so important as we sometimes go through life without necessarily finding meaning or direction. You're an ordained minister, you're a businesswoman. Uh, and did you let the book come out finally, Love Letters to My Daddy, which was scheduled for last December? So you really are an accomplished author. But what I found hugely interesting beyond all this, and you being an excellent radio host, you do say your bit, I think, every Thursday on a Savannah, Georgia radio station, uplifting mankind through your spiritual messages. Um, how you balance your so-called ministries of business, or the ministry and the business side of you. And then, of course, I think your other very outstanding impact for people around you is what you call the Second Chance CDFI Bank, which which I think is a fairly rare format because most banks are concerned with the wealthy and those who have what I call established collateral or
Mhm.
legitimate credit worthy. But, but
Absolutely.
but like the Grameen Bank, I think is some bits to know what you do, giving your micro loans to minority business owners. So without much ado, we'd like to bring you on, Shri. Thank you again, and please get going. We've got a good over 26 minutes.
Okay.
Uh, uh, when you want to stop for a sip of water or something, I'll pose a question. But first, I'll get you to speak because you clearly have a point of view on many things. So,
Well, thank you so much, Sakdev. I appreciate you so much. And obviously, this platform of the Women Economic Forum and Dr. Habib, it is a beautiful, I feel quite privileged to be with you this morning. I am in South Carolina on the East Coast here in the USA. So it's really early. It's 6:30 a.m. in the morning here for me.
right,
But I'm so excited. This pandemic put everybody at home. Last year in April, I had my first international trip and had the privilege of being in New Delhi with
right.
this amazing organization, and I met so many like-minded souls. So it's a privilege to be back with you guys again today. I am so delighted to be with you today. Out of everything, I feel like I'm an octopus when it comes to all the different hats that I wear. When you mentioned the list goes on and on. Uh, Probably my most proudful moments in this life that we call a journey are my children and my grandchildren. So
Mm.
mommy's a part of that as well, and grandmommy, or actually Nana. But besides all of those other very sweet and special, precious moments that I have in my life, my baby, I believe the reason that I jump out of the bed every morning is Second Chance CDFI Bank. And it was
Right.
through my own personal journey, both personal and professional. You mentioned my spirituality as well. It all kind of collided. And the way I describe purpose is the place where an epiphany and destiny collides. And that's
Brilliant.
exactly what, yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I was working in corporate banking. I like to introduce myself as a recovering corporate banker. And it
Right.
was in that environment that my hands were tied essentially, and I was unable to help my neighbors. It was very frustrating for me because you were just talking about the collateral portion of that. For us here in the US, everything, um, wealth is directly connected to your credit rating
Right.
or your net worth.
Right.
And I can go on that tangent, but I won't for the sake of this particular interview.
Right.
But I had many neighbors and friends, especially in the real estate, when the real estate crashed in 2008, 2009. Some of my best customers, they had the rug literally pulled from underneath them by no fault of their own. And
Right.
at a time when they needed resources, they weren't even able to get the resources. So how much more for those that were what we are referring a lot today, the most vulnerable among us, those underserved and underrepresented people, minorities especially, really were behind the eight ball. And so that was my epiphany moment. I saw a documentary entitled Spent, SPENT, Looking for Change. And I promise you, it rocked my world. And it
Really.
woke me up, from a humanitarian perspective. And that's why I love this platform and all of the beautiful souls that are participating in this particular event, because this is all about humanity as a whole. I'm in the US, you're in India, I imagine, Bangalore.
Exactly.
Obviously, I was in New Delhi, but at the end of the day, we're people, and we're people with beautiful souls, and we have families and loved ones and friends, you name it. At the end of the day, the mission is all about humanity. And I wanted to restore, if I can use that word, human dignity.
Right.
Because I know a lot of hardworking minorities who just for sake of life does not have the financial sophistication. So
Right.
they weren't able to go to school, particularly an Ivy League school,
Right.
and learn financials, how money works. And for me, with that particular documentary, it really revealed to me, a banker who was running a bank with a staff, so forth and so on, how banks actually work. Here it is. I was working for a bank. So being very transparent now and
Yeah.
just sharing that I had no idea how the system worked. And
Right.
when I got a clear understanding of how it worked for some, but it didn't really help elevate others, I couldn't continue to do that. So I literally, what I refer to as committed career suicide and decided, I'm going to do something else with my life because we get one life. And I wanted to make a greater impact for humanity at large. Did I know what it was going to become today? I had no idea. Did we know that COVID-19 was going to shut the entire world down? Nobody knew that either. So it was really the perfect storm, if you will. But I'm so grateful that I had the courage and the guts and even the empathy to even acknowledge my fellow human beings and say, what can I do to really lift the human spirit around the globe? And I had no idea that I would run into a WEF either.
Right.
But you know what? Our life has a beautiful way of coming full circle. And so I am so thankful that I listened to that call. It was really annoying. I couldn't sleep at night. And I kept seeing the disparities, among just people in general. And it moved my heart and that moved my feet.
So, Sherry, just to stop you for a second there, clearly you were a person sensitive to the larger issues of humankind. And I think many
Yes.
a person walking this world are. Somehow we tend to draw the bubble around us because maybe we just completely consumed satisfying our lives or we're just working for our immediate families. So do you think this was divine intervention of sorts, this calling?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It was a
1000%.
Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks type moment where they seized the day, if you might. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly what it was for me. When I watched that documentary, it was the epiphany. Like a light bulb just came on and it changed. And I was so convicted at a personal, deep personal level that it moved me. Like I was literally grieved. I say in my soul, or we will refer to in my heart, like it, if anything ever broke your heart, it broke my heart. And you're absolutely right. I'm glad you raised the point because I was fine. I mean, I was calling the shots. I was the person with the delegated authority. I was writing the checks. I
Right.
was hiring my staff, and so I was very comfortable. Me and my household was fine, but I was also equally grieved. And just being who I am, I guess the way I refer to God, my faith leads everything I do. And I believe the way He orchestrated my life and the way He personally designed me, I honored that. I honored that intuition, call it what you want to. But I've done a lot of personal development work on myself. And I
Right.
think had I not done that, I would not have recognized the moment.
Right. Right. Wonderful. So Sherry, I think you're really kind of starting on this brave new journey simply because you're funding, in some ways, the marginalized communities.
Yes,
Often,
sir.
the issue we have, for example, with the way a banker sees that segment is we don't quite know what homes, which homes they live in. Is their address even proper? Should we ever have to send a collection agent to get our dues back? Would he or she even show up? So just the whole odds are so badly stacked. He's had no prior experience running a little bread shop or something. So
Mhm.
how do you what's your criteria to help people? I'm sure there are many people queuing up and wanting to get your money, right? And what if in the odd chance they drink it off and all that, right? I'm saying. So.
Very good question. Thank you for that. I wrote down a quote just before we got on, and it says, "A journey to 1,000 miles begin with a single step."
Correct.
A journey to 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And the reason why I say that is this is why we love startups. And really, it's a market opportunity. It's an amazing market opportunity. But at the end of the day, what I hear you saying, which is what I get a lot, obviously, is this is a very risky target audience.
Right.
Like, how do you start with the most vulnerable among us? Again, I think this pandemic that we all are in was the perfect setup to
Right.
be able to showcase that that is a great opportunity as well. And at the end of the day, we got to take care of them anyway. So let's create, instead of just viewing them as a problem, let's create a solution. Isn't that why anyone ever goes into business? I believe another quote is invention is the necessity.
Oh.
How is it? Necessity is the
The
mother of invention.
Right.
Yes. So because of that, we saw it differently. Like, we saw them as an opportunity. And at the end of the day, we all had to begin somewhere, that single step. And the other part of that is the second chance. I believe you can agree at some point in your life, I can certainly attest that there were many times in my own life that I needed to be given some grace. And what I mean by that was a second chance to start over again, to hit the reset button. I believe the name of this particular digital seminar conference is talking about resetting. It's there's a re in there. It's been it again and again and again till we get it where it needs to go. But I'll tell you what sets us apart is our motto is redefining capital and taking the risk of lending. And I'm so, like, I couldn't even think of that. That was certainly divine intervention. And when I first heard it, it made my own eyebrows raise. Redefining capital and taking the risk out of lending. How do one do that? Number one, let's redefine what true capital is. In my very humble opinion, capital, the most important form of capital, is not money or dinero. It is people, because without people, we cannot have any industry.
Wonderful.
Bottom line, we need people to work. I mean, again, COVID-19 was the perfect setup, and it shows us that. So we're doing that, first of all. We're bringing it back to human dignity. Right. And then number two, how do we take the risk out of lending? Every banker is scratching their heads and they're saying, where did this lady come from with this idea? Right? Right. Every financial analyst, like, she must be crazy.
Exactly.
But how do we take the risk out of lending? You think about every Fortune 500 company. They have policies, procedures in place to accelerate and almost guarantee their success, but not a startup. Our startups, the entry point for a startup is so hard. Number one, access to capital, which is where a lot of banks focus on. They don't have it. Most have to do bootstrapping. And if you have to really rely on, if you're in poverty yourself and you're going to rely on your cousin or uncle to fund something, some great idea that you have, you can forget about it, because they don't have an extra $10 to give you. So to get started, there is no entry ramp. There is no onboarding proper in place in the market as exists currently. And so most people look for what I refer to as low hanging fruit, when it's easy, after you have already have a proof of concept and you've already generated several $100 or $1,000 in revenue, then they want to get involved with you. But what if we thought differently? Mm-hmm. What if we thought about this whole thing differently? What if we really created an opportunity to help people have a sustainable quality of life? How do we do that? There's so many experts in all of the different industries, particularly the financial arena. Why don't we take the best of the best, like these Fortune 500 companies, and create a model that not just throws mud on the wall? What I mean by that is, based on your credit history or your payment history for the last, say, 7 years, we're going to give you this loan and hope you do the right thing. No. That doesn't make any sense, because if a COVID-19 comes, you're talking about disrupting our entire lives. We had major corporations right now that went belly up in a matter of 3 months. So where are the projections at now? What happened to that? Where's your contingency fund? This is my soapbox. I'm going to digress. I'm going to digress. But we can see clearly that although they had a plan, the plan did not work when it came to a health crisis. What
Right.
we're doing and how we have set ourselves apart is we are coupling the access to funds, the access to capital, what we refer to as resources, to not just include money. The resources that we're coupling this with is the financial expertise, the
Right.
business advising. So we're going to be there just not to onboard them, but to be with them and create a guided pathway to success, to
Right.
sustainable longevity. And it's absolutely amazing. It gets me out of the bed every day. I can't wait for this to explode. But I'm going to let you ask another question before I keep going.
This is terrific, Sherry. This I had a question. Uh, there's this famous bank out of Asia in Bangladesh called the Grameen Bank,
I'm
run by
familiar.
Nobel Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus. Now, one of their principal philosophies in micro lending was to give principally money to women, because they found that when they loaned to women, women were very sincere in returning that capital and the interest. Is that true as well in your thinking, or that's again a gender bias that goes against men, or starting up men business owners?
I am of the mindset of if you ask a better question, you'll get a better answer. And this is
Ah,
not a direct against you in the way you formed that question. I think we just need to change the way we look at information today
right,
because we're living in a totally disruptive environment right now.
right,
And I think, first of all, you have to come into a conversation with an open mind. And I
right,
think a lot of what your question is based on old programming. So
right,
looking at today where we have actually been interrupted, and
right,
again, no fault of any of ours. We can really say that none of us had a direct effect on what we're living in right now.
correct,
You know, we were a recipient of all of that. So let's come into this, say the playing field has now been leveled. So
level,
let's come into it with a fresh mind. And when we come into it with that different type of perspective, I think I'm a huge fan of actively listening. And so I think we just need to shift our focus, if you will, when we're thinking like that. I don't think it's a right or wrong or his or her type question. I think
correct,
what is the root cause of all of this? You
correct,
know, and going back to human dignity, let's go back to restoring that for all people everywhere, whether you're here in the United States or you're there in India. That's my take on it.
that's a really a fresh take, because otherwise we bring in our biases in starting to do something new, and just off the starting blocks we are handicapped. Shuri, I had another question. Right around perhaps where you live, um, I've had the opportunity to work in the technology services outsourcing industry, and one of our clients was this famous credit card issuer right there. And
Yeah.
their ability to use information to generate 43,000 types of segments on credit card markets. That means one customer is a little bit profiled, bit different from the other. So do you think as you build a new bank, you're going to use information and analytics, what I call the hard sciences, the left brain, less soul, more logic type approach to get less risky on your lending?
What do you mean? I want to completely understand when the very last part you said to get less risky. What do you mean when
What
you
I mean
say
is,
that?
you're also building a compassionate bank, right? Where the heart will also tug on the lender's check writing ability, right? And so I'm just saying, how much would it be driven by hard logic and how much by compassion? All things
Very
same,
good. Very good. No, no, I totally get it. At the end of the day, what you're saying is still business. And you
right?
can be compassionate, but you have to understand business. And that is the beautiful thing that we do understand business at the end of the day. This thing needs to be profitable, but it needs to make a social impact. So what we propose is that we're the corporate responsibility, where we have that as well, but we understand that in addition to the social good and the social impact, there has to be ROI. So absolutely, to your point of, I would say, using algorithms and all of this that we have at our disposal with artificial intelligence. Absolutely, like
Right.
I love it. Like I thrive on it. I just stated earlier that the list goes on and on in my bio. That includes my grandchildren, and literally, I'm doing this to leave a legacy for them.
Right.
And I believe a good man leaves an inheritance to their children and their children's children. And with that being said, I do have that in mind. So I am very innovative in my thought process, and I actually thrive on change. Chaos kind of, is my fuel. So looking forward to disrupting from that perspective as technology continues to evolve. Absolutely, we have to evolve with it. We're not going back. It is not the old normal anymore. The
Right.
future is here. The future is now. So absolutely. Listen, this whole business model is built on acceleration,
Right.
trying to get back sooner, quicker, faster. And you got to think about risk of default too, because of the particular target audience. We've thought through almost every angle that we possibly could. But absolutely, in order to go get back, we're talking about human dignity. I believe in holistic lifestyles as well. We're talking about spiritual, mental, emotional, you name it. Likewise, if we want to get back to a point of wellness as humans, we need to live and not just labor. And so part of that, I think, is leveraging AI and technology. Absolutely.
And Sherry, my next question is in terms of sourcing your funds that you will then disburse to the markets, to the startup entrepreneurs, are you also looking at what I call patient capital, capital that is willing to wait a bit to do good to society? Because otherwise, traditionally, people say, give me my dime back twice, so very quickly, right? So,
Yeah, we refer to it as, some of our investors, that conversations that we've had obviously are looking for a quick return on that investment. But interesting enough, there's some that's motivated by impact, especially now, which is why I'm loving obviously this environment that we're in, because they want to see the impact directly on people's lives versus a return on the actual dollar. But
right,
patient, yeah, investment, absolutely. Well, listen, we are in a lot of great conversations right now. That's been interesting too, because what I've had to learn while building this is all money isn't good money.
right,
So believe it or not, I've had to say no to some opportunities just to stay in integrity with what our mission is, and I won't compromise on that.
right,
But I believe, it's there. It's there, and it's just perfect timing. Absolutely perfect. So yes, to your question.
right. And so Sherry, this the other bit was that just from your banking hat, who would you not lend to? Do you have filters to say, I simply won't fund a type of business or above a certain ticket size because the whole idea is to get a lot of relatively poor people off the ground. Do you have a certain sense of who you want to particularly assist as
You
a
know, yeah, our product obviously is money, right?
right,
Just like McDonald's is a hamburger and fries, our product is money. But I know there are smart people in the world that they would go after what I called, again, low hanging fruit. So if it's cheaper money, then they would want to exploit that opportunity. So we have to be mindful, and obviously my team has to be mindful that we stay committed to the target audience that we have defined. And obviously we have the perimeters in place to be able to identify those so that we are making sure that we are honoring that commitment. So if our portfolio is 80% minorities and 20%, diversified, then, we got to stick to that. And we're
right,
going to honor that. Absolutely. So those would be the ones that we're not. We got to maintain our target audience and delivering on that confession, basically, that commitment.
right. And Sherry, again, Are you going to build from the ground up these risk calculators for this audience? Because sometimes it's very hard. Banks have standardized checklists, right? And that helps them profile any potential customer for his or her risk. Uh, uh, are you going to just use, again, there's some great technology tools there, which helps build these credit rating profiles. So what's your take on that? Or are you going to
Yeah,
just,
yeah, no, I understand completely. We have a couple of things I'd shared there. Number one, uh, we have been working with a lending software company to actually build our own lending software,
right,
where it would have, all of the criteria in there for approvals, just from an underwriting, excuse me, just from an underwriting perspective. And so that's one. Number two, as I stated earlier, here in the US, and I'm interested to know how you guys grant credit in India, but here in the US, it's really driven by your Social Security.
right,
What we're doing, particularly for our target audience with minorities, we already know that they don't have obviously the assets or the collateral or even the decent credit score. So starting with what we have, we are actually creating or have created a credit enhancement model where we're not thinking like the traditional banks have or currently approved loans. We're not doing that at all. It
right,
is totally, yeah, it is totally different so that we can meet the people where they are. Because again, we're not looking to the borrower specifically or solely to ensure that they return the loan that's lent to them. We're not just looking for them to be able to do it. We're taking the risk because we're banking on us. We're helping uplift humanity, but because of our experts, all of that risk is reduced. The risk of default is reduced tremendously because we will be the ones that's basically running the business with them. So most times business owners are working in their business that they don't have to work on their business. And that's
right.
the differentiator for us.
That's a brilliant line. And that seems very inspiring. And so, Sherry, I think we've run out of time, unfortunately. Uh, your ideas, your talk is so inspiring, and I'm sure many a woman entrepreneur here or a bank thinking freshly about this business would get inspired by your thinking as well. Um, as a final act, as a token on behalf, or as a token of our appreciation on behalf of the Women Economic Forum, um, I'm delighted to confer the award of Iconic Woman Creating a Better World for All. And I think the award will find its way. I'm sure the organizers have some way to send it up to you in South Carolina. But thank you again, and look forward to staying in touch, and may your power increase.
Very good. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, is that Zarina?
Yes. Hi, how are you today?
Such a pleasure to meet you.
Such a pleasure to meet you too. And thank you for having me.
On behalf of the Women Economic Forum, it's really my privilege to have this honor to chat with you. Clearly, I think your resume would make it sound that you should have been a much older person. You were so early.
Yes.
That's the speed at which millennials are coming after the older generations to extinct, right? But it's terrific. I think one thing after another. So just for the larger audience listening in, it's really my privilege to introduce Zarina Poonawalla, the founder of Appzo. That's a business. You have perhaps coached in every field, right? Leadership, neuro-linguistic programming, right?
That's right.
And from the many of your achievements, doing talk shows to which garnered several million hits. I think you're scripting some bits of a film thing or something that I also saw.
That's right. Yes.
Scripting.
Yes.
Yeah. But what really stood out for me, Zarina, was that John Matone discovered you, right? And he was Steve Jobs' coach. So
That's right. Yes.
yeah, and so that must have been a moment of epiphany or honor
Absolutely.
to show up on his radar, and that's how we have the pleasure to hear your expertise. So we are here to talk about. I got my notes mixed up. What we should do is we have the whole half an hour.
Right.
I would let you go full blast with your point of view on this topic, and then should you need a break, I'll jump in. I'll ask a few questions either during some natural breaks or at the end of it. So
All right.
the platform is all yours.
Thank you. So I think my topic for today is working from home and, the responsibilities and the challenges that come with it.
Right.
So thank you for actually giving such a lovely introduction to me. And let me just take this forward with the very fact that I may look slightly young, but I'm not that young. And I've been in the industry for the last about 12, 13 years now. Work from home has suddenly become the talk of the town. Of course, we're all aware of the new normal per se.
Right.
And the new normal really it's not something that we're supposed to get used to. It's something that we possibly have to understand has always existed.
Right.
All right. Somewhere down the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution, if I may, there were no office spaces. There were no business parks. People worked from home even then.
Correct.
So working from home is not the issue here. The challenge really lies in, families and people being together, especially when you're looking at Asian families which put up together. So it can be very difficult for people to be under the same roof and find the kind of, focus and time to contribute to work. So I guess that's one of the major challenges that we face. And that's exactly the reason why one needs to focus on a couple of things here, because the magnanimity of this virus that has caught on to all of us seemed like we'll be getting through it much earlier, and we're almost hitting August, and things are still the same. So naturally, there are a lot of things that really don't work out, especially I'd say for women. Women in general have a lot of household chores to look after. They need to do the laundry. They need to make sure that the kids have got their meals, or the family in general has got their meals. And if you're at home, people do not realize that you have to work otherwise as well, that you have a serious job to take up. So I guess, that is where the real issue lies. And one of the first things that I really think I always advise people, especially during the pandemic, is let your family understand what your job is and how much of your time it requires.
Right.
Just because you're sitting on a phone or you're sitting on the laptop, people assume that, you can multitask. You can do possibly a couple of other things around with it. But that is not very possible, because if you have a finance job, or you have an accounting job, an IT job, a developer's job, it's hard to focus. You need your space. You need your time.
That's a brilliant point. I'll just interrupt briefly. That's a terrific start, Zarina. And I think the funny bit is, like you said, people forget that over time, 58% of India's GDP comes from services.
Absolutely.
Services also is, many of which, as you said, including IT, are global services. The youngsters like you are ambitious. They also want to work from home because they're okay with that blur, watching Netflix maybe on one screen and while still coding. And I think many of you, in a sense, and I keep saying you because in some ways, we grew up with the landlines and all that, right?
So did I. I've grown up with a landline. I had a box computer at home when I was in 8th grade. So yes, I pretty much am somewhere in the middle there.
And we worshipped it before we used it, you did.
Absolutely.
So the point I was trying to make is the blur between work and home had already started to happen. Now and funnily, for the longest time, particularly here in Bangalore, people complained about the commute, 2 hours to office, 2 hours back.
Right.
Now that is not there. right? With 4 hours of backbreaking car drive,
Mhm.
it's a big relief. So why are people not welcoming this? That's one. And the
Mhm.
second thing that I want to lead on to is like you said, Asian families, we have the doorbell ringing while you're on a conference call.
Right.
Someone's just ordered fresh milk or something else. And as you said, life has to go on around work.
Mhm.
And I think as women, you all balance these two worlds a little more naturally. I've seen women to men, women conversations where they're quite at peace to say, I'm cooking something on the gas. Can you hold for a second? And that's pretty much done.
That's
In,
true.
again, a traditional male dominated view of the world, and
Mhm.
male men can also be considerate. Somehow that is not. So, do you have any thoughts on some of these things? Or
Sure. So I really think when it comes to the first thing that you mentioned, the commute,
right,
unfortunately, we're not open to change.
right,
And let me just put it this way: if the pandemic started and we were told that the government is paying you, you've got to be sitting at home and working, and
correct,
you don't need to do anything but relax at home, work at your space, and work in your time, and things are going to be fine soon.
correct,
The attitude and the approach would be very different.
correct,
Now, this is a lockdown, and
correct,
a lockdown really changes the way you're looking at things. Your perception has entirely changed because
correct,
you feel caged and you
correct,
don't want to be caged.
correct.
So I'm guessing it's a matter of the perception we have. I mean, a lot of people have been asking me in the past couple of months as to, so I have a podcast as well. It's called the Empowering Series and Monday Mantras. And on the podcast, usually I'm asked this question: what are you doing and how are you holding up with the lockdown? And I'm like, I'm actually living it up. Why
Correct.
am I thinking I'm locked down in my own house when I have the ability to not commute?
Right.
I'm the money that we're not making right now is the money we're also saving
Correct.
at the moment because the commute is stopped.
And
All
the air
the
is much cleaner, and the birds are
uh-huh,
clean. Yeah,
absolutely, the city is clean, the world is clean. I mean, as they're saying, the earth is healing. That is, of course, in process. But when you look at it from even a financial perspective, not only are you saving time and money, you're also saving a lot of your energy. All
right,
right. And unfortunately, people don't realize the importance of energy and the importance of conserving your energy before you actually spend it that loosely, because you're going off to office, you started your day, maybe your job's a 10-hour job, but you've spent 14 hours because you are commuting for two
correct,
each.
correct,
And that is the amount of time you're saving. And of course, apart from that, another thing that people are missing out on is the very fact that you're not really living in the luxuries right now.
right,
Considering that, you're saving a lot of money anyway. You've
correct,
got to live with the basics, and that is good enough. But I guess the whole thing boils down to the fact that we're not open to change. And the words such as lockdown and social distancing, I guess we just don't like the feeling of being caged.
right,
And maybe that's the reason why people found it so hard to come to terms with this.
right, right.
So I would say call it living it up, Say you're living it up at home. You're getting time with your family. You can work, you can relax, you can take a nap in the middle of the day if you will. So you should try that out.
No, but Zarina, I think you brought this up earlier. Again,
Mhm.
as Asian families, we are okay with, in a sense, many a person under the roof. Over
Mhm.
time, as India has progressed both economically, materially, families have also gone nuclear. Now,
Yes.
in that social context, and what has happened is both the man and the woman in the house, so oftentimes equally qualified, now go to work either in the same place or different places or similar type industries or whatever.
Mhm.
And each has their own ambition. Everyone has their own boss, their own demands of the work, and all that, right?
Right.
Now they're cocooned under one roof. These two tigresses, if you like, right?
Yes, yes, of
One
course.
roof. Do you think it changes the dynamics? Because in some ways, I haven't spent so much time in the kitchen ever, right? And much that I tend to believe quite a feminist, I'm emancipated from traditional male-oriented views. That's my
Mhm.
belief. I can say it's a horrible thing to. I mean, it takes forever to clean the house, and now I'm more respectful of my maid's ability and all that, right? I'm just saying. So, do you
True.
think it has kind of also reset the way husbands and wives should look at each other? Families should be more accommodating, sensitive. What's your take? Or mean, that territory is also getting recarved, right? In some.
Yes, it is. It is such, Dave. And I think I look at this with probably two different aspects. One, if you're looking at the family aspect, when it's a joint family,
Correct.
one of the things that have happened recently, and I've heard this also, is people are realizing what a woman is actually doing all day. So when they're living in those joint families and the in-laws or the husband or the aunts or uncles haven't realized that, oh, she goes to work, and what is she supposed to do? She doesn't know what's happening in the house. She's going to work. And now that that woman is working from home,
Right.
there is, if I look at the positive aspect, there is a sense of validation and appreciation that that's a lot to handle. And we haven't been doing that. And we haven't even realized what she's been doing.
Right.
That's one aspect. And that's the positive one. Of course, the negative one is the fact that, they think sometimes it's not a big deal. You can continue doing what you're doing whilst you're cooking, whilst you're looking
Yeah.
after the baby, whilst you're sweeping and mopping the floor. So there are these two dimensions to a joint family. Coming to the nuclear one again, I would say I'd look at it in, possibly glass half empty, half full. When a man and woman, like the tiger and tigress, like you mentioned, work together, I think there's a sense of empathy in understanding that the other person is also going through the same procedure every single day.
Correct.
And that can work for a couple. That can work
Right.
wonders, because if you know that, you can actually divide household chores and errands and kind of, make time work for both people. Plus, they understand the importance and the respect your work requires in terms of the space and silence. So
Right.
that would work well. However, again, if I'm looking at maybe not the benefit of having a nuclear family, it's the fact that a lot of responsibilities weigh down that one person, where you could possibly hand over your baby or say, can you cook something today because I have an important meeting? You cannot do that anymore.
Right.
And in a way, it makes you more independent, but it can also bog you down quite a bit.
Right. And so, Serena, do you think also the reset involves managing our day better? And what that means is there may be days when you have to work till early in the morning, and then
Mhm.
maybe
That's right.
sleep, and that kind of person. Otherwise, in a traditional go-to office setting,
Mhm.
you are getting to the office by 9:30 in the morning. Your work day is perhaps over by 6:30, 7, or whatever. Then
Yes.
it's your free time. It's your television time. It's your food time. It's your sleep time. It's your family time. Now it's all in fragments, right? Because suddenly you may have to go shopping in the afternoon with
Right.
family to go buy some essentials, and then. So, do you think all that is also?
Yes, of course,
Okay.
Sachdev. One of the things that you really need to do when you're working from home, in my opinion, is wake up, dress up, and show up. If
Correct.
you're roaming in your pajamas all day and you're groggy from the beginning of the day, you've already set a tone and a temperature for your day. You've decided that it's one of those easy days, although you might have plenty to do work-wise.
Which is why I took up the WF role here, because I think it's time to wear a jacket.
Yeah, look, we have to take the effort even whilst we're sitting at home to make sure that, we're presentable, we're in the zone. Because I think a large part of getting psychologically into the zone of working through the day is your attire and how you're setting the tone of your day right in the morning. So all those people who generally are sitting and slouching around in their shorts and pajamas, their days are slightly less productive, Sajdev, as compared to those who, are all charged and crisp and ready to take it on. And maybe when you start your day with that mindset and psychologically with a good attire and in the mode to work, even if you have to take that break in the middle of the day to go and get your, household shopping done, like you mentioned, it would be okay because you're mentally prepared to come back to work.
Right.
And I think there's a mental preparation that is required, which people do not pay attention to.
I love what you say, because many years ago I met a famous neurosurgeon in Bombay.
Mhm.
He was attending to a patient, and he was in a lovely suit and a tie. And I said, look, you're just going to the operating theater and you're going to soon be in your whites. He says, when the patient sees me before the operation, he or she must be inspired. I must have clean nails, and I must at least look 15% more. I mean, so the point is the psychological rub off is what you're saying is
It
what.
is.
Right?
Absolutely. And I personally am of that belief too, because, when you're in a coaching kind of environment, it's not necessary that you step out of the house every single day. And I'm as a person, I'm pretty independent in terms of the cooking, cleaning, and all that jazz, which you've just spoken about in terms of what all a woman's got to do. So I'm okay with it, but I do find it difficult when I'm sloppy from the beginning of the day. So it's the minute you've decided that, hey, let's just wake up, dress up, and show up, things just change for you.
Right.
There's efficiency, there's productivity, and not only with your work in terms of your professional aspect, but even in the house, you get things done much faster.
Right.
Otherwise, you tend to procrastinate.
Right. I also wanted to ask you, if you look at the Western world,
Mhm.
where house help is generally unavailable,
Mhm.
they tend to manage a lot of their stuff themselves, right? Fixing a
Right.
light bulb, mowing the lawn, and yet doing their chores, right? They perhaps do the laundry once a week or whatever. Do you think this reset might shape our social lives similarly? I'm saying.
It already has, I think, in a large way, to be honest with you, Sachdev, because initially, if you when I've traveled abroad, seen families, and you're traveling with some Indian male in general,
Right.
and you watch all the Indian male who are living abroad, but they're doing the dishes and they're doing the laundry and they're making they're making morning tea or breakfast, and you are looking at them and you're thinking, see, this is what they do, and they're like, yeah, in India we have help, it's okay. Now the point is there is no option, and now you realize that, okay, what happens is we don't have help anymore, and that's fine, we can manage. It's not something that you can't do. It's your life anyway, these are your chores anyway. So having help was a privilege, and if you don't have that luxury, you still have to manage to get your way out. And I think that there is a shift in mindset there. People have started to realize, and not only that, I think there's also a shift in the sense that you're not dependent so much on people. The dependency on others to get your job done has reduced to a large extent.
Right. But what do you make of what might happen to industries such as real estate? They build these very nice big offices, software parks. All that, do you think will also reset, or it'll give to new land use? Someone else will go occupy it for the greater good of, for the future good of humanity. There must be some innovative thinking, right? But this is
Right.
like all expensively built
Mhm.
glass and stone stuff, right? So it's not easy to.
No, definitely. I think on that, I'd reckon it's a combination, because there is a mindset of revenge buying.
Right.
Even now, if I just tell you that one of the malls are open for shopping, you will still find a percentage of people who will say, we'll see whatever happens, and everyone's going to get the virus, it's okay, let's just go, let's just have a good time. So there will be a set of people who will still want to purchase, who will still want to rent out corporate spaces, and probably have smaller teams, work in smaller strengths. But I'm pretty sure that there'll be a combination. There, I think with the real estate and markets like that, Sachdev, a large part really depends on the pricing factor,
Right.
and if there is a pricing factor which makes people feel that even in this current scenario we can go ahead with it, they will.
Right.
They will.
I
Yeah.
like the way you give a balanced thought. It's not doomsday one way or the other, right?
Yeah, I mean, what is this whole doomsday about? We have to get used to what we have now. The world has seen a couple of these changes on and off.
But I wish, just on that note, I thought there could be some forward-thinking innovation where companies give employees a certain allowance to kind of dress up a room in their home, like a studio of sorts.
Right.
Give them a nice fat internet connection, maybe a bigger screen to code from, and all that. So, I mean, I'm just saying all that.
That's a wonderful bit of ideation there, Sachdev. I think that's fantastic. I hope somebody is listening to this and considering it. But I mean, at this point in time, with the commercial aspects, there was just something I read about Ratan Tata yesterday.
Right.
And he said something so beautiful, which I was having this conversation with a client 3 months ago. And I said, big companies shutting down
Right.
are a sign that it's been a facade all this while.
Right.
You've been calling these inspirational and role model companies, but they cannot even hold on 3 months.
Yeah, it's
You
really
know,
sad how fragile the balance sheets are. I don't know.
how fragile. And that is where it's okay if you're an SME, you're tinier, but as long as you're keeping your people and you're kind of sustaining the business. So coming back to what you've said, yes, the ideation is amazing, and maybe people should consider that. But at this point in time, Sachdev, another idea just to bounce what you said off is give them an option. Would you
Yeah.
like the space, or can we add a perk instead of the space to you? You
Right.
know,
Right.
just another financial aspect of things. So I'm guessing if you can give them those kind of options, it would be wonderful. I think motivation is missing when you're working from home.
Right.
And what you've talked about is that kind of motivation in a way.
Right. Now, Zarina, I'm not going to miss this opportunity, and I'm sure our audience will just love to tell us about this John Mitton experience.
Uh-huh.
Or any other epiphanic moments. I mean, I think you're very wise. Again, I keep saying for your age, whatever that is. But what was the great takeaway from that experience? What does it feel to show up on the radar of a great Silicon Valley coach? I mean, after all, he's dealing with someone who's not been easy to deal with. Jobs was brilliant at his work,
Right.
very demanding and intense as a person, right? So,
Right. So what I actually went through was this process where they got in touch with me, and I was extremely excited because naturally I'm aware of how leadership and trainings work around the world and what are the names that you want to associate with. When I got the opportunity, I grabbed it, of course, and I learned a lot because I think it was a 2 or 3 day program that we did. It was a Zoom call, and we went through that. And then, of course, the situation came up now. Otherwise, I would have got a personal chance to
right.
visit. But there was something I learned about leadership and enneagrams, which I haven't learned or used as an analytical tool so far in my process of leadership coaching. And that was fantastic. So that moment and that experience was amazing. But, you know, Sachdev, having said that, one of the things that really strikes me in my entire journey is the fact that my profession chose me and I didn't really choose it because I studied in Australia and I had a wonderful boss there. He nominated me for a trainer program at the point.
Right.
So things just, you know, one after the other. And, you know, if you stick and you are persistent with some of your dreams or some of the things that you want to achieve in life, I guess things just work out in a certain manner.
Right. Also, do you want to share any bit of the wisdom you share on your several podcasts? I think you do this every Monday, is it, or do you do this?
I have 2 episodes that release every week. One is an episode with a guest, which happens every Thursday. It's called the Empowering Series with Zarina Poonawalla. And I have one which is called Monday Mantras, which releases every Monday, naturally, as the name suggests. So that's just a short format and a couple of snippets and, you know, tidbits to go ahead with your day, finding your daily motivation.
Brilliant.
Yes. One thing that I really want to share with people is when you're working from home, divide your time, communicate the importance of being able to tell people off and learn to say no. That no, this is the time I need to work on this and I won't be able to work on something else, right? That's important. Learn to still make a schedule where a couple of those hours belong to you specifically only for work, and then you still have the rest of the day for a lot of other things. And I think one of the things people must remember is you don't need to have a bad day.
Right.
And, a demotivated day. You can have a couple bad moments, you can have a couple of bad hours, but you don't need to have a bad day. So learn to train your mind and condition your mindset to bounce back, because the happiness that you're looking for constantly, whether, you know, you wanted to work from home many a days in the week, you used to tell people, hey, you know what, you're so lucky you work from home and have to go to office. And now you're getting this opportunity and you're still seeking happiness somewhere else. Now you want to go back to work. So I think it's the happiness that you're really seeking for is a state of mind and it's not a goal. Don't try to make it a goal. Don't try and achieve it later. Do it now with whatever you have. If you're working from home, make the most of it. Find other things to do and manage your time well.
Right. Wonderful. We still have a couple of very precious moments left.
Lovely.
Conversation. So all yours, whatever you want to talk about. I think you're a good talker, you're a natural talker. You can conceive of a topic on the fly. So
Thank you. I think one thing that I would like to probably make a statement about here is the anxiety and the stress people are facing in this current scenario. And with the work from home scenario, if you combine it,
Mhm.
you will realize that a lot of people are using these words very loosely and not realizing the importance of how to deal with them. So I would say, just do a few things during the day. Start your day with a few affirmations or just get into the right zone. I'm going to have a good day, irrespective. Look, there's a pandemic outside, and you don't want to compare who's gone through things or not gone through things. But whatever you have, you've got to make the most of that. That's one thing. The other thing is, don't look at this whole situation as a lockdown. Look at it as a chance of living it up in whatever little you have.
Correct.
And lastly, get used to change and condition your mind positively that, okay, change can be good and we need to figure out how to make it good for us.
Right.
So I'm guessing those couple of things would be nice together.
Yeah.
Anything you want to ask me?
And I think you're right. I think there's, funnily, often people suffer because they don't have sufficient information. This pandemic has thrown what's called the infodemic. There's just so much of either eating garlic or ginger or something else and home cures. And my uncle said that a type of cure, right? So,
Right.
so there's also the anxiety of processing a lot of unwanted information. So do you think one shouldn't read newspapers, watch mainstream television? Because how does it matter if you've gone to 14.2 lakh cases today, and or do you think that should stay because that's what makes us sensitive to the pain around?
I think we've got all the information we need, Sachdev, and the important thing is to know what to do with what we have instead of trying to gather more, because the number of cases aren't going to change the way people are functioning. If we've reached that number, maybe there should have been more social distancing, more physical distancing. People should have been a little more careful. But then again, the fact is that everyone's thinking it's going to happen to somebody else. And that's the reason why I think we've got enough of the information we need. We're supposed to start focusing on looking after ourselves. We're supposed to focus on trying not to get out without a reason. Try focusing on just taking all the precautions you can. I think if you shift your focus there instead of all the news that you're reading, it will actually be productive for you and it will help in the long run. You'll save yourself in some way or the other.
So really, the Zarina Poonawalla, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I think the clock ran out on us. I wish the world could imbibe all your sense of cheer and enthusiasm. I wish you the very best. As a final act on behalf of the Women Economic Forum, it's really my privilege to confer the award of Iconic Woman Creating a Better World for All award on you, and the award will find its way to you from the organizers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. You've been an absolute inspiration. I learned some. I'm sure the audience may have taken many.
Thank you so much. You were wonderful, and thank you for leading this conversation in the right direction for me. Thank you, Sachdev.
Thank you. Thank you, Zarina. Let's stay in touch. Cheers.